So I'm with Alex Bruce, who is a friend and who's also an expert in whisky. And Alex, can you explain, even though I know, but just for the viewers, why you're an expert on whisky?
I don't think there is such a thing as an expert on whisky, because you're learning something new just about every day. But I've been very lucky over the years, having come originally from the wine industry, to have some pretty good mentors in the industry, in the whisky industry, including the likes of Charlie McLean. Charlie's vast knowledge of Scotland, not just whisky, is really useful for all those kind of things. But one of the things he really taught me was how to taste whisky properly. And if you start from scratch, the easiest way is to remember that your nose is basically attached to the front of your brain, and in the front of your brain is where you should, if you haven't had too much whisky, store most of your memories. Okay. So what you're trying to do when you're nosing and tasting whisky is to use your nose to trigger one of these memories, and rather than make up some fictitious, fruity whatever, you're actually going, oh, that smells like when I was in a room with my father.
Okay, so it's bringing back kind of memories.
Exactly. So whisky is all about this sort of evocative relationship with your past. And if you remember that, it's much, much more easy to write quite good, quite interesting and fun tasting notes.
Okay.
And I mean, this is what we do every day. Yeah.
So this is your business now?
Yeah, so I'm involved. I've been very lucky to be involved with a company called Adelphi for the last 13 years.
Okay.
And Adelphi was founded about 25 years ago as what is known as an independent bottler of Scotch whisky. So these companies exist to bring on other people's whiskies. So they go around selecting special casks or maturing special casks of whiskies made in different distilleries around Scotland. And when they see them, or when they believe them to be ready to drink, they will then bottle them under their own brand with a reference to where it was originally distilled from. Now Adelphi, the way we do our selection is very simple. We buy mature stock, but only when we like it. So if we don't like it, we don't buy it, so we don't bottle it. We take this. So this is a sample from an ex-sherry hogshead. So Scotch whisky, generally speaking, is always filled into what we call refill casks. So it could be a first fill, or a first refill, or a second. And that means that it's had something else to season the cask before.
So why are the colours different?
Well, you can see. I mean, the one on the on my left is a light sort of gold colour, or pale straw, we might call that. That would indicate that it's come from certainly American oak, which is a white oak.
Really?
And normally probably ex-bourbon as well from Kentucky. The one on my right is a sherry cask, and sherry casks can be made of American oak or Spanish oak, Quercus roba. But in this case, to get that colour, which is coming from the tannins in the wood, it's going to be Spanish oak for sure.
That's really interesting to know.
And in both cases, they're quite active casks, so they're showing their natural colours very well. I mean, when spirit comes off the still at a distillery, without any oak influence at all, this is from our own distillery in Adelphi. This is my weekly sample that I get to make sure everything's running well. No colour at all.
And
that will become whisky in 3 years' time.
Even without any colour?
Well, it goes into casks, and if they're good casks, this is our own Adelphi after a couple of years in a decent cask. So that literally transforms like a whatever into a butterfly.
Isn't that fantastic?
No, it's all part of this fantastic kind of patience game of maturing Scotch whisky, and it's all down to the fact that we have this amazing climate here in Scotland for long-term maturation. It's cool, it's damp, it doesn't fluctuate as much as it does in continental countries. When you get fluctuation, of course, in temperature, you get more evaporation, so more of the volume in the cask disappears, the angel's share, and as the volume goes down, the ratio of whisky to wood goes in the favour of wood, so the wood starts to take over, and that means in a hot country or one with a lot of fluctuation of temperature, you're going to get a mature whisky, but not a very complex whisky necessarily, in 5 or 6 years. Whereas in Scotland it takes 20 25 years.
I like how you call it the Angel's Share.
Yes.
I think there was a movie about the Angel's Share.
There was, well, funny enough, Charlie McLean.
He was in it.
He was in it.
I'm sure I know the name, and that's probably why.
Great film.
How long does it take before you can call whiskey?
Legally in Scotland it's 3 years. Some other whiskey producing countries in the world is 2 years, but in Scotland, Scotch whiskey has to be 3 years old before it becomes whiskey. One of the selection process parts of the process is to see how the whiskey will be, and a whiskey will be over about 46% alcohol. If you shake it, you get this head of beads like that, and bubbles. And depending on how long they last, how big they get, is an indication of the texture you're likely to get in your mouth. Now, if you do it with a whiskey that's under 46, I've got one here. This is at 40, so it has been reduced with a little bit of water. Then I shake it. I'm hoping this will be flat, basically. So one of the criteria for our bottlings is that we keep them at high strength. We keep them at natural strength, what they've actually ended up after all their maturation. So the alcohol slowly comes down, and that leaves you with the full texture in the mouth. Now, if you want to then add water to make it easier to drink, then of course that's up to you.
But does that change it?
It does. We tend to find that it changes it more if it's been matured in American oak rather than Spanish. But in fact, what's happening when the spirit is becoming whiskey and the whiskey is maturing in oak, because they have to be oak, these casks, it actually becomes hydrophobic, which sounds terrible, but what it does mean is that when water's added to it, it will actually react, and you'll get all these fatty esters and oils and everything coming out. So if you do it in the bottle, on the bottling line, you lose that, it's gone. But if you keep it at natural strength and then add water in the glass, when you're tasting it, you get to see how it changes. But of course we look at the colour, having looked at the beading, we'll look at the colour, and we've already said this one is a nice sort of straw colour. Which indicates decent maturation, nothing remarkable, not over the top in any way. And then, of course, a simple swirl to get the flavours to come out. These glasses, by the way, these are actually designed for high strength whiskey, cask strength, because the chimney, this bit here, is extra long, which keeps your nose away from the alcohol to stop your nose burning. So it allows your nose to work better. And likewise, the little lip on the top, this bit here, make sure that when you do taste it, it lands in the middle of your tongue, in the middle of your palate, and then spreads out.
That's fantastic.
Because if you put it on the front of your tongue at high strength, it kills the palate. So the glassware is very, very important. Very, very important in whiskey. I mean, the tumbler, which a lot of people will, that was designed for a long drink. So either over ice, on the rocks as the Americans call it, or by adding some soft drink to make it more palatable as a long drink. But when you're really coming to enjoy and appreciate whiskey in its purest form, you should have a proper glass like
so this. It should, because as you just said, the tumbler is what again in a private house you use.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but you're not going to get the intensity of the nose, the bouquet.
And the ice would obviously again change it.
Ice is a tricky one. If you're in a very hot country, ice is probably the right thing to use because it will melt very quickly, and it will then allow the reduction with what's left, the water it becomes, that will reduce the whiskey. But in a cooler climate like here, if you put ice in and it remains as ice, for 5-10 minutes, it's killing the nose. So you're not going to get all that nasal flavour. So it's all about appreciation versus analysis. If you're analysing like we are here, the only thing you should really add is a little bit of water. One of the other things, of course, is the stem, which is very important. Just like a wine glass, a decent hand's width between my hand and my nose, and however clean your hands are, or worse still, if you've got soap on your hands, you don't want to pick that up in your nose. So trying to keep your hand away from your nose, trying to keep the alcohol away from your nose, all very important. Ideally you want it at a normal room temperature, sort of 50 degrees, something like that. So if it's very cold, if it's come out of the cask, it's been in a cold warehouse, then you can just do that for a few seconds, bring it up to temperature.
And I see your hold, because the way I know all the glasses like that you're holding it from the base.
Well, I'm purposely remembering that, trying to keep my nose away from everything apart from the whiskey.
Okay, so just do a little spin.
So just do a little spin, gets the air in there, shakes it up, brings out the flavour. And immediately this huge bit of honey and church candles in this. It's like
What's funny is sometimes when if I'm doing the wine tasting and you say, I can't pick up the smell of what they're saying, but with what you're saying, I can get the church candles and I can definitely smell the honey.
But that's perfect, honey waxy. And then if you want to take a little taste, remember at natural strength, this one's going to be in the low 50s. You don't want to take a huge gulp, it's just a little taste. Try and get the lip to drop it in the middle of the mouth, let it spread out and let it sit there. I mean, there's one guy in the industry who's very, very well known who says that you should hold it for a second in your mouth per year of maturation. So it's sometimes quite difficult to do with a high strength whiskey, but what he's trying to get out is the fact that you should really savour it in the mouth before you taste it.
You actually taste it. I like that. I do like Clyde Leach.
Very, very waxy. You get this coating behind your teeth. Fruity. A little bit drying at the end, which is nice. It all balances in very well. There's a maritime characteristic there. A bit salty on the sides of the tongue. And then a long, sort of thick, viscous, is the word. And that was highlighted when we were showing the beading earlier. That's what you expect, this viscosity.
When's the best time, would you say, to be enjoying a whiskey or dram?
Well, we actually, when we're doing a lot of our tasting, our analysis sessions, we actually start quite early in the morning.
In the morning?
That's when your palate's at its best.
Really?
Freshest.
So what, for breakfast?
No, I'm going to get to the office first, but no, I mean, again, it goes into that 2-category thing. For analysis, get your palate fresh, do it in the morning. For enjoyment and analysis to a certain extent, I would say before a meal. For me, after work, it's a nice time to have a dram. Of course, you have different styles of whiskey as well. So you'll get this lovely golden coloured ones, which are normally American oak. Previously, bourbon has been inside the cask. And that is the lighter style, the sweeter style. And then you get the darker ones, the big sherry monsters, as we call them. And these are matured in European oak, specifically Spanish oak in most cases. And those are tannic, they're deep, they're rich. So you really want to be after dinner, the sort of the digestive.
The darker ones, and the lighter ones
pre-meal, yeah.
Pre-meal.
Or I mean, in some countries, you would actually drink it with a meal, and more so, food and whiskey are becoming partners.
So that we have wine, they would have. Which countries would do that?
Well, traditionally, probably India would be the strongest with that.
Where can you find more information about this? If you want to buy these glasses or want to get hold of your whiskey, how is the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, we have a website and all the normal social media outlets. Website is Adelphi, adelphidistillery.com, and you can find us on all the rest, the Twitter, the Facebook, and
there's a links on your website to all of
there are.
All of
that. In terms of actually getting our whiskey or our glass, we are quite rare, not because we want to be or put any premium on it, but just because when you're dealing with a single cask of whiskey each time, it doesn't last very long. But there will always be regular update. And these glasses, we don't actually sell them as such, unless you go to our distillery on the west coast at Adelphi. But they are designed for us in Germany. We buy a few hundred every year, and they were designed by a master of wine out there, so they're very special.
They're very smart.
Yeah.
And now you all know where to find them. If you want to get these glasses, get in touch with Alex. Alex, thank you. We're going to carry on sitting here enjoying some whiskey, probably sharing some more stories, and thank you.
Slange.